but this is a passage. I'm just going to read one sentence. However,
Okay.
it is 2 pages long.
Okay.
And the church where the tomb is the dome. And there's a French word in this, which is guichet, which means the ticket office. You know, like when you go to an amusement park. Okay. This is what I met in the dome. Altogether, a surprise I could only experience as one might a change of weather. With not much thought for myself, having begun to enter, having been told to get a ticket, naturally not there, but at a guichet around the corner, annoyed by this typical inconvenience and slightly exaggerated price of 20 francs, came back to see the famous tomb of Napoleon, with only in my mind the notion that it would be some vast, imposing thing one looked up at, like the Arc de Triomphe, and walked into this more or less perfect Baroque church, sort of an old dome, to see the floor had been removed from the entire center, and a great round railing of marble around it, and below, submarine, a huge catafalque of polished red porphyry, with gleaming scrolls carved rising along the top, sitting like a sunken heart in the pavement, surrounded by a mosaic of laurel and a sunburst mosaic of gold, including the names of Napoleon's famous triumphs, Jena, Austerlitz, Rivoli, and so on, saying nowhere Napoleon, no N. And all around the circle, tall statues of women, they're called victories, with reeds in their hand and their eyes cast down. While looking up, a grandiloquent church, all domes and coffering, Louis XIV presenting his arms to Jesus in the sky. A desecrated sanctuary made over into this operatic tomb, which you might call camp, and would be hard put to call serious. But I knew when I laid eyes on it that because it was so lucid, so tacky, so entirely gross an act of vandalism in the exquisite church, a violation of all the canons of geometry and grisaille that render the taste of Paris invulnerable to the sneers of other protocols of self-possession, because descending, one enters around the enclosure a circle of bas-reliefs of Napoleon, like a Roman emperor, half naked and half divine, lit by lamps not out of place in the lobby of a Hollywood palace of the 1920s, because, exactly because, it announces his reforms and memorializes his stature as the captain of dreams, with his headlong expressiveness and brutal sentimentality, abjectly in disregard of that Roman purity, aiming at spectacular immobility which one sees indelibly in even the vaguest remembrances of the great Arc. Because it speaks in 1,000 ways, despite the gilt catalogs listing achievements and battlefield triumphs, with the undisguised sincerity of defeat, of a fall from more than royal heights to a bottom below the floor of tragedy itself. I knew that I had stumbled into what Paris had been holding for me, that this inferno of bad fate, that bad taste, had more to tell me than the familiar excellences of the Musée Picasso or of the music at Saint-Gervais, that this echoing inconsequence of ruined altars so precisely answered my sense of what the city was telling me, that I had no choice but to attend. And so, sleepy with wine, footsore, and appalled by my own fascination, I began at last to discover in myself, under the character of irascible and disappointed tourist, the incommensurable energies of a pilgrim, arrived at last at what I had been seeking all along in this city full of imperial attitudes. Italy, in the worst sense of the word. Italy, the symptom. Italy, the residue. My Italy. What I would strain to find even if it were not there, but there it was.
Very good. Did you discover Italy at that point?
Yes.
Because I know you majored, probably you wrote a dissertation on Browning. When did you discover Italy?
I had been to Italy before. I had been to Italy 20 years ago in 1977. This happened in 1986. I had been to Italy, but I was looking for my Italy. I was looking for the Italy of the outsider. You know, when I went to Italy, the main thing that I saw in Italy, people said to me, what do you think of Italy? I said, there's a lot of walls.
A lot of stones.
No, walls.
Yeah,
walls,
yeah,
gates, barriers, spikes, ways of not coming in condominio privato, all this kind of thing. Wherever you go, you always feel like you're either inside or outside in Italy. There's no in between.
But at the tomb of Napoleon,
Yes,
there is also the presence of your mother.
that's right.
And you connect mother
With Napoleon.
with Napoleon, with the Italian, great
Yes.
Italian diaspora or
Yes.
immigration.
Yes.
Maybe you can tell us a little about this.
I took it as a kind of a trovato, because I went home that night, and I thought, oh, this is how I celebrated my mother's 70th birthday. Because it goes on. There's a great deal about the tomb of Napoleon and the Musée de la Grande Armée that's connected to it. It was a big investigation that started me. And I realized that there was something there. There was something there. It wasn't just that they were short and dark and Italians outside Italy, the two of them, and very smart and very determined. All of that. But it was something else. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that there was an element in the migration that nobody had talked about. And that was this. The migration was a revolution. The people who came here from Italy were people who had been sitting stapled to the same spot for centuries, maybe even more than centuries, by the oppressive laws of the old regimes, of which were many. The first thing to disturb that was Napoleone Bonaparte, who successfully invaded Italy at the age of 26, leading the Armée de la République, or whatever it was called in those days. Armée de la Révolution, maybe, I'm not sure. He disturbed all of that. And it's a long story that I won't bother to try to tell now, but had it not been for Napoleon, there'd have been no Risorgimento, and had there been no Risorgimento, there'd have been no Great Migration. And so I saw him as the direct antecedent, but I also saw him as the direct result, and let me explain that. The migration was a revolution. It was like the French Revolution. It was a break in time. They had lived one way forever, and now all of a sudden they lived another way. They left the 12th century in Italy, and they landed in the 20th century in New York.
Painful